Hello, friends. Welcome to this week's episode of Everything Went Black. It's a really cool episode. Once again, Locrian joins us this week to talk about their upcoming record, which, if you're on Patreon, you're getting this early. But if you're on the regular stream, we're just a couple of days from the release of the new Locrian record. I have these guys on every time there's a new record in the works. Always an interesting chat. And this was very loose, very casual. So, it was a lot of fun. And great band. I've been a huge fan for a very long time. And I've got to become pretty close friends with those guys. So, yes, my opinion is somewhat biased. But the new record, from what I've heard, is very good. It's incredible. If you like this show, chances are you also have been listening to the Horsemen of the Podcasting Apocalypse. Those are my colleagues, my allies in this war against mediocrity. Kicking things off every other week, we have Brandon Legion's Horror Wolf 666. Up next, Jackie Smith's Into the Necrosphere, the best metal podcast on the internet. It's literally the only one that I listen to regularly. Then we have Everything Went Black, which you're listening to right now. I return the next day for Necromaniacs, along with Mike Scandato and Jeff Kashid. And if you listen to this show, you probably listen to Necro, so you know what the deal is with Necro Thursday and all that. Friday, Mike's brother brings us Spitball Media. Saturday is a day off. But do not worry. On Sunday, the Lord's Day, Carl Hikara brings us Soul Knocks, a show which has been incredible. I've been listening to almost pretty much every episode when it comes out. I'm a Patreon subscriber, so I get them early. If you're into darkness, the macabre, the esoteric, that's a show for you. Carl generally deploys 2 episodes on Thursday and Sunday every week, which is it's a pretty good schedule to keep. Carl and I are also doing a collaborative effort called Darkness Weaves, where we explore the work of Carl Edward Wagner. And lurking in the shadows out there, we have Iblis Manifestations, brought to you by Cheyenne of the band Trivax. He's been on this show at least twice. Yes. He's been a guest on this show twice. So, if you like those episodes, check out his show. If you like the podcast and you want to support it, aside from sharing it with your friends, please join the Patreon. For as little as $1 a month, you can support the show. For $5, you get early access to all the material. And if you want to be a sponsor, there's a level for that. Good evening, gentlemen. We've got the 3 members of Locrian here. I wasn't sure exactly who was all going to be on this call, so I'm happy to see that we have Terence, Steven, and Andre. So welcome, guys. Welcome back. It's good to hear from you all.
It's good to be here.
Thank you. Thank you for having us.
Well, it's the celebration of the release of yet another Locrian record. And it's kind of cool that we get all you guys together and whenever a new album comes out. And when this podcast is, airing, it'll be pretty much right on the eve of the release of this album. So if I believe the release date is April 6th.
5th.
April 5th.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's it's pretty much right on the cusp.
Great.
Yeah, couple days beforehand. So yeah, it's as of right now though, only 3 tracks are available for everyone to listen to. So leading up to the record, definitely check those out. I've been enjoying them myself. And the one thing I noticed is that this is a very different record than the previous record, at least based on the songs that I've heard so far.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a lot more, for lack of a better term, rock. Like there's more rock. There's more hard rock going on.
Yeah.
A lot more like guitars.
Yeah.
It's a little bit more raucous than some of the, especially the record previous to this one.
Yeah.
And there's even a guitar harmony, some guitar, like Iron Maiden style guitar harmony on one song.
Yeah.
Andre's very good at that, so we encourage it.
Yeah. So like what's I mean, I think it's great that there's such a huge bandwidth of diversity here with the releases. But I'm just really interested to hear like what went into making this record.
Sure. It it really began before New Catastrophism. We had been pretty much immediately after Infinite Dissolution, we had started some of these ideas. One of the tracks began I was looking at the demos and it was like dated 2014. So for 10 years, we've been like, we worked almost 10 years. We worked on this song. So I think it was just like, we kind of knew the record we wanted to make and just kind of like taking the time, and New Catastrophism came. We kind of went into that one where there was nothing pre-demoed or pre-recorded, or barely. And I think this one was like, let's just take the time to really craft it into something a little bit with some more shape and definition.
It's the record we wanted to make like 5 years ago,
Yeah.
almost. So yeah. We we took our time with it. And not for the most part, not intentional, because there's some some things that happened in between 2019 and now. So but these are ideas that we've had, little nuggets of ideas that we've had for several years now, that we finally were able to make them, realize them, make them the songs that they wanted to be. So yeah, it was good. It was great. I'm very happy with the record. I'm incredibly happy with the record. So I'm glad people are interested in it. So and New Catastrophism is great, but it's totally different vibe, so totally different vibe than what we got going on now. So that was
they kind of go together. It's kind of like they're like opposites of each other, like
they are.
Yeah.
It's still us.
Intentional. Yeah,
it's us.
Yeah.
So yeah.
I think that's interesting because a lot of people think music and is created in this kind of linear fashion where you write one album and then you write another record and it's all very linear. I think, and maybe even with other artists that's the process, but when it's so interesting to me, like when the way the music's presented isn't necessarily linear. Like, for example, some of these songs date back to 2014, like 10 years ago, and they just sort of been living out there in this like ether on this formlessness, and then kind of brought into reality over the course of 10 years. And I think that's like such like a interesting way of something coming together, because at some point you probably thought, well, these will never be realized, like these might never actually be born into reality.
Sure.
Yeah. I mean, it's amazing. Like, I think I never thought it wouldn't. I always kind of believe that I knew that there was something there, and whenever we would get together, we'd be like, man, that demo, like I have this idea for it. We would always kind of talk, and we would text like I have an idea for this thing, or like, what if this did this? So there'd always be this, like, we were all listening to the demos that we had made, and they're pretty like on your phone. They're not very fancy, like, but it would just be like, you'd be like, yeah, there's a vibe there. There's something there. Like, let's not forget that. Let's not forget this riff. Let's not forget what we were doing. We were all together in that practice space in Baltimore, whatever. Like, so there was always like a belief, but life and the pandemic, and then when things cleared up, it was kind of like, I think it was, with New Catastrophism, more like, let's get back in the studio and try something for our fans that was maybe something for our older fans that was more in keeping with some of the previous records, like before the Relapse stuff or before Crystal World even, or something like that, where it's more like ambient and freeform, and we don't have to worry about it so much, and being structured and tight. But because we knew that we really wanted End Terrain to be tight, like that was like the other part was like much more structured and concise. So yeah, but I feel like other bands
take a shot.
would.
You said structure. We've made a pact that we're not going to call our music this album structured anymore. So take a shot of something, Terrence. I don't know.
Structure and concise. We have to stop.
We have to stop. That was like one guy. One guy said that.
Yeah.
Right, who said something? What? Someone was talking shit. What's going on?
No. Someone just said we said it maybe too many times in an interview.
Yeah.
The interviewer said it. The guy interviewing you.
Yeah.
Wait, he's trying to get cute with you guys.
It's okay. It's just like
yeah. But then we were like, then we're all very self-conscious about like, are we saying this too much? But we hadn't said it yet. I've been doing a word count. No one said it yet. We're fine.
All right. Yeah. You got to do a shot of something.
Okay.
Yeah. But it was really actually kind of interesting. I mean, it was actually really interesting to go back and listen, like when we were recording, when we were putting ideas together, or even before we were recording, just like passing, ideas, just to hear some of these things, like, maybe I completely forgot that, like, a couple of them were when Andre was still living in Chicago. And Andre and I would getting together at my practice space, and we would just like jam. And he was recording them on his phone, and they're just like, as you can imagine, just like blown out sounding on your phone. But you can kind of hear like ideas, and you're like, oh yeah, that's a really great idea. Like why don't we just continue with that, or why didn't we? But years later, and also just like how we have grown as a band and how we've morphed into what we are now, taking those ideas and turning them into something that is Locrian, 2023, 2024. It's pretty interesting. And I think it worked perfectly. It's a great record. I'm really happy with it. So I'm glad we hung on to those ideas, and we have a lot of ideas. So yeah.
It has a very live, like a feeling like the songs will lend themselves to being performed live. Like that's that's not always the case with some of the songs you guys have. Some of the songs that over the past catalog, to me felt more like kind of existing in that non-reality of non-live music, like a music that is out there in the sphere somewhere, and then you just sort of tap into it without ever being performed live. This record though has that feeling of that visceral live feeling to it, from what I've heard so far. So I mean, these songs, I think, are you guys planning to do any touring or any kind of out to support the record? Because I definitely can see being incredibly sounding live.
Yeah, we are, and it's great that you say that, because I'm now getting into like the rehearsing, practicing for Locrian Live, and I for months I was like, like how can we pull off some of this? Can I personally pull off some of this? We've done it. We did it in the studio, but like, and it's working. Like I've been like, the last couple of weeks I've been like kind of cramming at the practice space, and so but we are planning on
so we'll do
live shows.
We'll
maybe
July. We'll probably definitely New York, Chicago. It'll be Northeast, Midwest, and Canada. And we're just waiting on some confirmations before we can kind of fully announce it. But But yeah, very soon. And same with Steven. Like, I think I was like sitting down maybe a few months ago, just like starting to like, okay, what synths, what effects, how many more pedals am I going to have to buy? What new synth do I need to get to make this work? But it actually, like, Andre came over and we kind of sat there and just went through each song on the record, and it felt not so insurmountable and like something that it felt very natural, to be honest. Like, I'm like, all right, this is gonna work. Like, we literally got through every track, and I was like, at least for me, I can't speak for Andre, but for me, I felt like I can do these. Gonna take a little bit, maybe some looping, but I can get through and still make it sound like the song, and that made me feel really encouraged.
Oh yeah, we'll be able to pull it off, and we will. So I'm looking forward to it. It'll be great.
I always imagine, I listen to these songs, like, and I imagine there's like 10 guys on stage, like playing like five guys in front of keyboards and like 2 guitars.
We're just gonna hire 7 dancers to fill out the stage.
It's interesting though, because like the process that you just described, like there's like on Under Sullen Skies, there's the last Proper Tunes LP. There's that record was recorded and mostly written within like the pandemic, you know what I mean? So we didn't really like we were practicing, like we were rocking and rolling like nothing was going on. Like we just, we were just down at the practice space all the time together anyway. But the like there was 1 or 2 songs on that record that there were so many layers and so many different parts and synths and everything and female vocals and stuff. And like, I just didn't know when it came time to perform those, I actually had to pick, because there's only 2 guitar players in the band. So like, we had to pick what sections, like what parts we were going to play to carry the song, It's like, is this the riff that actually carries the song, or is this riff just like dressing? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I like this one, but I don't know if this actually gets the point across, So it's like, it reminds that what you're describing to me sounds like the process that we went through with this one particular song on that record.
I think we're going to have that same discussion, and we're going to go through the same thing too, because there's a lot of tracks on this record per song. So.
Probably Andre.
And like, we'll have to decide, like, are we going to use backing tracks, or are we going to use pedals, or are we going to modify things? When it comes to this kind of stuff, I always think about my favorite Led Zeppelin song is Achilles' Last Stand. And there's so many different guitar parts in that song, and yet they played it live. And I'm pretty sure Jimmy Page was the only guitar player. And I think it just turned out to be like a bit of a different song. And I think that's one of the really interesting things that can happen when a band performs a song live, is it sort of becomes its own thing. And so I'm really kind of excited and looking forward to what these songs become in a live setting, because it's when we play live again in July, it's going to be 8 years since we've played a live show. And so it's going to be, it's like crazy.
Yeah.
Because we used to be so,
well, that was such
routine for us to play live.
And
we used to be so young, and
no, but that was like a part of the process, was like we would have a thing we had practiced, and then we would just keep playing it live, and it would be like, oh, there's this other thing, and hey, keep it going a bit longer, because this other, it was like a lot more of like the live part was the process. And obviously we don't live in the same town, you don't have to play live all the time. It's like, I mean, not every band works that way. I mean, I think there's some bands are like, obviously this is the song on the album and we're playing it the way it's on the album. But I think for us, live was like a creative process too. Like, at the end of this is this cool thing we're doing that's noisy and weird. We should just kind of keep it going a little bit, because what happens after this, So I think that there was a lot of that creativity. And even when we were on the last tour we did play live, was like at the end of songs was like, this is a totally different song, because we just were like, it's cooler if we transition into this thing. And it was like there were songs we were playing that were real, like Auguring and Evaporating Tower off of The Clearing was like one where the end of it just totally change live, and it was awesome. Like I was thinking about the other day, like that was pretty cool that the ending did this. It got heavy at the end, so just drifting off on like it did on the album. It was like this heavy ending. So I don't know, live was a part of the process that I'm actually kind of looking forward to getting back into that, like playing the tracks live and seeing what happens as we're transitioning between songs and finding things,
improvisational elements and kind of like restructuring some parts. I'm looking forward to that again. It's writing stuff just on the fly, just like minutes before we go on stage.
We did do that.
I don't think I can operate like that, man. Like it's like
no, come on.
Yeah,
live
I'm
a
like
little,
real,
Mike. Live
like,
a little.
Yeah, I got like the thing like is beaten into my head where I don't have to think about it anymore. You know what I mean? I just go out there and execute the songs. But
that's good
anyway,
too.
The have you guys considered making recordings of some of these live shows? I think it'd be so interesting to release a live record because of these changes.
Yeah.
Like Led Zeppelin.
Song remains the same.
I've thought about it.
The song remains the same.
Song remains the same.
I think isn't there a recording of our Roadburn set? I thought that they said that there was a recording of it somewhere.
Yeah, there is. I mean, I think
I've not heard it, but I'd be curious to hear.
You've heard it.
What? I have?
You heard it.
Okay.
Sometimes it's like I do like live recordings, at least to like refer back. And I think, when we began, all the first Locrian recordings were live recordings because we were improvising everything. And that was the only way to be like, well, that was dumb and don't do that again. Or that was cool. We should make sure we go back to that cool part and keep that thing going. So I think for us, it's a little bit more of a comfort zone in a way, like where, like we can kind of slide into that. Like, when you're playing live and something goes wrong or whatever, you can kind of like, all right, it's okay. We can keep another thing going while, a string gets replaced or whatever, happens, or something goes off with electronics, like, but I think the other side of it is, we're just very comfortable with that. And it's a big part of the creative process that has been kind of missing for us, so, I mean, I don't know.
I'm not a huge fan of live recordings, to be honest. Like it's really rare that there's like a live record where I'm like, this is good.
Except for Unleashed in the East, man.
I don't know. Yeah. I guess like Live After Death might be a good one.
I like the version of Green Man Alicia on Unleashed in the East better
than I love that record.
That's great. But there's a lot of those records back then that were there. They say they're live, but they're not. Like Live Undead, not live. Kiss Alive, not live. It's just I don't know.
I'm going to disagree and say that like some of my favorite Cream records, and I really do think this is where heavy metal started, is when Ginger Baker, the drummer from Cream, and Jack Bruce, the bass player, they like hated each other. And you can hear that there's like this animosity in the two instruments. Like the bass playing gets like really gnarly, and Ginger Baker starts doing all this fucked up double bass on these Cream songs. And you're like, this sounds like this is definitely like heavier than Black Sabbath was at the time. And I think live recordings can be really cool. And some of the songs that we've like that you referenced, Mike, that we haven't played live. Like for instance, one of my favorite songs of ours is The Clearing, and we've never performed it live. And I think the reason was that we just, at the time, we were just so focused on creating new music rather than figuring out how to operationalize that song for a live setting. And to me now, I think it would be really fun to capture a live recording of some of these songs that we even never played live. And I think we could do it. I would be a consumer of that, but I don't know if Terence and Steven would.
No. I mean, I like live recordings, but I think that I like them as references in some ways, from maybe more for myself, but I'd be into it for sure. I mean, I do agree with you, Andre. Like, it'd be cool to go back to, I mean, I actually think it's funny because I think maybe with the clearing, we thought we couldn't do it. And now I listen to it, I'm like, oh, we could totally do this thing. Like, why did we not play this live? Like, I'm like, what was I thinking? Like, we could have totally rip this track. Like, it would have been awesome. And, it is like a 16 or 17-minute song, but, we could have condensed it a little bit. But, it was, I don't know. It's funny, like, you move through stuff and you're moving on, like, like after the clearing, and it's interesting how you quickly kind of like, we're doing a newer thing and we move into that zone and your brain just goes there and you don't want to go back to it. And I don't know. Well,
I'm going to reference 2 live records that I thought that I love. Of course, The Song Remains the Same, great.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Great.
And Black Sabbath, Alive at Last. Okay. Those 2.
Oh yeah.
Now on The
That's a
Song
good one.
Remains the Same, Zeppelin was like probably my first favorite band, my first favorite rock band. And listening to that record, like the songs just went off into these like excursions, into just, they went places, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Now, I've only seen Locrian perform once, and it might have been 8 years ago, actually, at St. Vitus. It might even be longer ago than that, But so, I'm going to share some of my recent experiences with these venues that they have shows at. Okay, so now it's so easy to get isolated tracks off of the PA system.
Sure.
So
Yeah.
I'm telling you, man, you guys should bring a little rig with you, and get tracks, and from every night, and then see what happens. See, like, and try to, you can mix them or do a room recording and then some tracks and then see what happens. And it'd be real easy to do, man. It'd be very easy. Unfortunately, the first show that we played on our last tour was captured in multi-track, and I was completely out of tune for the entire set. So that's completely useless.
Bring it back to the studio, re-record your guitar parts. No one will know. No one will.
The funny thing about that is Rennie from Starkweather was at the show, and he was like, after the set, because he's seen us a number of times, he's familiar with the songs, and he's like, you guys doing something different on that? It's like, it sounded like you were doing this kind of discordant, like Gorguts, like kind of thing, and I'm like, no, dude, nope. I just could not get that one string in tune. It was always like a little flat, and it was killing me to listen back to it. But to him, it sounded like we were doing this kind of like, like avant-garde.
Microtonal avant-garde.
Yeah.
Man, Mike is a shredder.
I can see, like, I don't know Rennie well, but I can see him saying that, and it resonates with my experience with Starkweather, because they're always the band that was like, a lot of people in the hardcore scene in the late 90s really were into Starkweather, but they were a little bit messed up. Like, you could never understand the lyrics, because the lyrics, he would condense so much into so little. And I loved that about them. And he'd also use some like really big words that I had to use a dictionary to figure out. But I can see him really being into that. And I think that's one of the things that I love about Starkweather's approach is like, they're in it for themselves, like what's interesting to themselves. And I would probably love your set, Mike, if your guitar was out of tune. I'd be like, I'd have the same kind of opinion.
I saw you a few nights later and it sounded great. So I thought in Baltimore, I thought it was awesome, Mike. It was a great set. Yeah, it was a lot of fun. Yeah.
But also another band that you guys share ground with too is like Throbbing Gristle and Foil and all those bands, and they have a very live thing going on with their music, especially Throbbing Gristle.
Well, I think that's also like a big difference is like in industrial music, I think, especially in the early days, like, and then noise, like a lot of bands, the live recording was like the recording. That was the album, because it was like the only time they got together or whatever. And it was I do think that's really cool, because it was very common to like have these live recordings of bands, and that's what got shared by tape traders and whatnot. So your way of hearing Throbbing Gristle will be these live recordings of Slug Bait or whatever. I think that that's really cool to me. I think that that fits that genre really well, because maybe it's not the the third or second concert, then and intentionally, right? Because the gear's weird, or you're more aggressive that night and you're really ticked about something, and I think that that in that genre is really cool, that it's and more of a, I know that maybe people in that scene would bristle at this, but more of like the tradition of that genre is that there are live documents of the recording. Lots of bands will share, that'd be the release, would be like a bunch of live recordings, and that'd be a really important part of the genre in a way.
Yeah, because the songs sound like they develop so differently, I think it'd just be really interesting to have
Sure.
multiple versions of the same song and enjoy it that way,
I'm making a note. Like,
yeah,
I like what you're suggesting.
I have the whole concept worked out actually too.
I'd love to hear that. Hit us up.
A series of cassettes, just a white cover, and like the name, like in courier font, just Locrian. That's it. And then everything's numbered, and that's how you roll.
Yeah, that's good.
I mean, well, those Fugazi live records are really interesting. That's a cool series too, right? That they did with the
digital thing.
Yeah, like you're I know you're really into those, like finding when they release them, you always are kind of sharing cool ones that you attended some of them. Like that's been cool.
That's what I do it. I'm like, because I'm like, oh yeah, I was at that show. I'm gonna like search and look for that show that I was at, and man, they have it. Yeah, like cool. Yeah, it's a great idea. I mean, it's incredible that they have documentation of so many of those shows. It's like, I mean, crazy.
And they were so good. Like it's like they sound pretty good. Yeah.
Pretty good. They sound pretty good.
I mean,
fucking great. They sound
great. They sound great. I mean, they sound like better than most bands' live recordings.
I mean,
but listening back to those, it's interesting because it's like it highlights to me the difference between what it was like to be at the conference and how you remember that, than how it was captured on some recording and then mixed later. So there's always some kind of difference, which is kind of interesting and cool. So I'd be totally down with that.
Think about too with Fugazi, like think about how they don't have a set list. I mean, I don't know that I don't think I could go that far where there's no set list and someone just starts the song and it's like everybody's in the song and like seat of your pants, like I think. But so you have these transitions between songs that vary every single night. That's kind of interesting, like I mean, I think we're talking ourselves into this in a bad way, possibly.
Absolutely not doing it.
Can't imagine doing that, honestly.
No.
I just cannot imagine having that level of I wouldn't even have fun performing if I didn't know what the next song was.
I just like curl up. I just curl up in like a fetal position and start crying.
Like, do I start? Am I starting this one? Is it you? Wait,
no.
Did you just click your sticks?
Can't do it.
So after 8 years of not performing as a band, what are some of your reflections on these upcoming this upcoming activity in a couple months? Preparation, like anxiety, like any of these feelings? No.
I'm excited. I'm just kind of I'm just excited, like to finally do it, and a lot of anticipation, like what's it going to be like and what's going to happen, kind of like to this ending that's pretty tight that we can kind of like play with a little bit more. Or
I mean, all those, Mike, all those, I'm curious what it's going to sound like, and I'm excited to do it live. I'm nervous, but that's a good thing. And that's pretty much it. Yeah. I think everyone, I think Terence and Andre need to get kill switches. I think take note.
Yes. No, that's been the issue, has been, how do I shut this off?
I was thinking of that like the other day while I was driving, thinking like for some of these parts that are just like dead, just like so quick that that there's got to be some kind of kill. Someone's out there has got to make a kill switch for a guitar, for
Yeah.
anything. Just like
I think
that.
they have that technology. I think we can
Yeah,
figure
yeah,
that out.
sure.
Yeah.
Sure. Or unplug the cord. I don't know.
Well, I
Somehow-
think Greg Ginn from Black Flag had a kill switch on his guitar.
Oh, really?
Oh.
I think he wired in just an on and off switch on there. And that's why, like, if you listen to Black Flag recordings, there's like, you'll hear like this blast of feedback and they just like bust into it because all of his stuff's like on 10 or whatever. You know, and he
yeah.
Okay.
That makes
so
sense.
yeah, that's kind of like the style,
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I've already been like working on that with like the synths of just like the like on the sustain envelope filter, just being like, all right, then it's off, and then just like things like that, where it's like where before just be kind of drift away, it's fine. Now I'm like, it has to be tight because I want it to be tight, like yeah. Definitely.
I know Buckethead has a kill switch.
My God.
But I mean, good suggestion. Like for me, thinking about these live shows, like I'm mostly excited about the possibilities. And it's really exciting to me that we get to think about like what's going to be our new live set. So right now we've been talking about what kind of visual components are we going to incorporate. And to me, that's like a really fun aspect of this. And there's also this question that I have that I think the other guys have as well, is like, do we just want to play the new album or do we want to incorporate songs from the older albums? And there's a part of me that's just like, I just want to do the new stuff. I think about like all the people that only got to see the version of like Iggy and the Stooges that played the album that was never released. And I think that's like probably my favorite Stooges album. The stuff that they did with like James Williamson that turned into parts of Metallic KO, but no label would support them. Anyway, so I'm kind of excited. I'm anxious about every performance, but mostly, we can take it many different ways. So I think it's going to be great.
Yeah, I think that we should definitely do most of the new record, but we should pepper some back catalog stuff in for sure.
Yeah.
That seems like the way
there'll
to
be
go.
some older stuff. Yeah.
I mean, and how are we going to fill up 3 LPs for when that live LP comes out? It just can't be the new record.
I know. But I have an idea. We'll just rent a space, and then we'll take the live audience recording of like from like Neil Young, and we'll put that in the background, just in between songs.
Okay.
That's it. Done. Sorry, Mike. You asked a serious question and we went off on a tangent.
Oh, I mean, these are all valid answers, really.
But are they?
But I think going along that same line, you have to do a Song Remains the Same style movie around the live album too.
Oh, come on.
Ooh, whoa. That's a good idea. That's a great idea.
Maybe
have you
that's a
seen
better
that?
idea.
You guys have all seen that, right?
Yeah.
I saw the
Yeah,
Midnight Show.
I do like this idea with the swords.
I was like a
psychedelic
kid when I saw it. Yeah.
You're really piquing my interest here.
There's the section in the
Mike,
movie where John Bonham.
Are you volunteering to produce this? Is that what you're saying to us, Mike?
I don't know anything about film, but I'll tell people. I'll have ideas. I know. So I have. I know people that shoot, so I could. Yeah, there's a section where maybe Terence, you can drive your hot rod like John Bonham, or Andre or one of you guys,
Yeah,
sure.
We all once we got that relapse residual check, we all bought hot rods. So yeah, it.
Mine's outside warming up right now.
I have someone polishing mine right this second.
Yeah, that's a good idea. Great live movie. I do like it.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah,
so this new one's on around Lore. So that's
correct.
So solid record label. A lot of different types of stuff. I like the kind of direction that he's taken the label in lately. So that's really cool.
Yeah, it's been really interesting. Like I mean, I really, we've known him for a long time. We did the collaboration we did with Mammifer, and that's kind of our beginning of our working with him. And he's always since then always just kind of been like, what's going on, how are things going, just always kind of asking us what we were up to, and kind of just made the most sense, you know.
Now,
and
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut anyone off.
That's
Someone
right.
All right, yeah. The feeling that I get from the titles and just the overall atmosphere of these records, you know, it's like I envision myself walking through this sort of post-apocalyptic bleak terrain for the most part. You know what I mean? And some of these titles like fall in line with that. Entering. There you go. Perfect.
Yeah.
You know, After Extinction. There you go.
Yeah.
Now, is that something that is that like a recurrent, even the older records, you know, have like this kind of like after civilization sort of vibe to it, like, you know, like the ruin of our current existence, you know.
Yeah.
Is that like a recurring theme throughout the years with you guys? All right, I mean, or am I completely out of line with saying?
No, it's totally within line. I think for us, we're very like conceptually driven. I think when we kind of have an idea, we can kind of like shape the sounds a little bit more. I mean, even if it's vague to begin with, and it gets defined as we're like mixing and getting the artwork and all that, you know, like coming in. So it's definitely been intentional. Yeah, I would say probably overall with like Greyfield Shrines going way back and Drenched Lands were kind of the like big like, oh, this is the kind of what we're about, you know.
Greyfield Shrines was our live recording that we turned into an LP in 2008, and Drenched Lands was technically our first studio album, just to provide context.
Yeah, I think those are like the first kind of like statements, and then it just got like maybe easier or more refined as we kind of worked. And then the Crystal World was kind of like really based around like using J.G. Ballard's book. And then now I think it was more like was kind of like crafting our own stories in a way, like our own narrative and terrain, and kind of changing the story a tiny bit for us.
You know, I can never really decipher the lyrics like in these recordings on the records. So, but I do know, Terence, that you are a writer as well, an author. You know, so you know, I have to ask you: is there like you mentioned J.G. Ballard, and is there a literary influence on the band?
Oh yeah, I mean, we share tons of books with each other. And some of them are science fiction, or some of them are. There's actually quite a bit of like, I guess, like science journalism. It's kind of like one of the things I guess we kind of share a lot of, like, you know, like the song After Extinction is named after this book, which is a collection of like academic articles about life after extinction. And that was like just kind of like something that I was referring to and we were sharing. And so, you know, it's definitely a big part of it. Yeah. Steve, I don't know if you want, I thought you were going to add something. Yeah.
No. I just agree with you. And that goes back since I've been part of the band. Like, you know, after Crystal World, then we moved in to the Clearing, and then like the collaboration with Horseback and everything. Like there's always been like some sort of theme to it that has stemmed from like something we've read, or like that we want to grow off of, like, and I think that continues. It does continue today. We like you said, we share ideas, and we'd like, oh, what are you reading? What, you know, like we pass this stuff back and forth, and so there's always this theme that's like an environmental theme, like and it's not always. I don't know how other people perceive it, but I don't like to think of it as like, at least for myself, like it's not all doom and gloom. It is, but I'd like to think that there is. I mean, that doesn't make sense.
No, you're right.
But
It's like,
like there is. I'm not always trying to be negative. There's something positive as well. Within the music. So yeah, that's all I got. Sorry.
I mean, the theme, like, once again, like I listen to the music, and the feelings that I get is a lot of like this kind of, you mentioned it's not all doom and gloom, but it's like almost like like this deep time kind of, like, how like there's like the Epic of Gilgamesh where there's like an apocalypse, and then after a cataclysm, this whole other civilization like rises from there, and maybe that's a cycle that is never ending. You know what I mean?
totally.
And that's like that's always been this feeling I get whenever I listen. You got the music of Locrian. It creates this kind of like cyclical idea, like this concept with me that there's a beginning and an end and then another beginning, and I don't know. It's just like that sort of cyclical thing.
I think like on End Terrain, I guess when I was writing the lyrics, I kind of flipped it, because I think in the past I wrote in this very like detached kind of like third person almost, and on this record I wrote a little bit more from myself. It was a little more personal, like so it was a shift, and that was kind of like the mantra I think in this record was a lot of like, let's try something different, let's do something we haven't done before. And to me it was like, I haven't written from my perspective, like how do I feel about this kind of trashing this planet, and I have kids, and like what is the future going to think about our time that we spent on this planet, and we've left them like a bazillion microplastics and everything, and mountains of trash, and just this garbage and stuff. And so it's kind of like reconciling your best intentions with your worst performance or whatever as a person. And with that, I wrote, like, with the LP, there's like a book that comes with like some short fiction, and on the CD it's like a PDF or whatever. But so I kind of like tried to expand this world, like kind of like project into the future, like what will like these future descendants kind of look back and think about, like this time, in a way of like wasting all this amazing time.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's really great. It's really thought out. I mean, it's super cool that you did that. And the bibliography at the end. I mean, just like, I mean, it's really fucking great. It's really, really
Thank
great.
you,
Just
Stephen.
thinking like ahead, like thinking, projecting into the future. I think it's done really well, and I'm glad that it's part of this.
Yeah, for people who haven't seen it, it's like the bibliography. I think it's really fun and interesting, because some of the things in the bibliography are actual articles, but then there's several things that don't really exist, but they look real.
Yeah.
So that was, I don't know.
They're like, it's like 1,000 or 2,000 years into the future, like it's really fucking done well, though. It's really great.
I could have like made that like 10 pages longer. I was just like, I have to stop. I'm just having way too much fun, like making up articles about the end of humanity. So.
Is the pre-order up yet for this?
Yes. Yeah, it is. Yeah. I think they're actually shipping. We heard from Chris at Profound Lore that CDs and LPs are shipping. I mean, we have our copies, so they're definitely on their way out the door. From he came on to our Bandcamp live stream today and told everyone it's like they're shipping immediately. Yeah.
You know what? Thanks for reminding me. I wanted to talk about that. I have the band. Let's get into what that's all about, man. Like you mentioned, you guys had such a great time doing the Bandcamp live stream.
Yeah, it's awesome. Have you ever done one, Mike? They're really cool.
No, never. Like, I don't think so.
You should.
It's very rewarding. I mean, you guys have a following. You guys have fans that like are really
that.
Yeah, you do. I mean, you guys
mom
work hard. You're
my
being
mom,
very humble.
Maybe my girlfriend.
No, man. I mean, it's just like like the first two, like I was like logging in to like set it up, and I'm like watching these two guys get on. The one guy's like from Australia, one guy's from like Ireland or something. They're just like talking. And I was like, that's pretty cool. And then like some guy gets in from Austria, and it's like someone like my friend Sean's on there, and like Trevor from Pelican jumps in. I was like, well, this is pretty cool. Like there's a bunch of really cool people here. And like everyone's just talking amongst themselves, and then like we jump on, and it was just like question. I mean, it's a lot of work because it's like a lot of questions, but everyone's there to like hear the record. And
you can't keep up with you cannot keep up with the questions because it's just like I don't personally, this is the first time I've ever done it, but I don't know how you like can connect, like if someone says something, how you can say hey directly to them. I was just like the questions, it was just scrolling, just like I was like, I don't know, I can't keep up with all this. Like, you know,
format was that it was a live thing.
Yeah.
And the record, there was a playthrough of the record.
Yeah,
exactly.
So we could kind of address like in each song, and you know, everyone's only heard 3 songs, so everybody that's in there is hearing it for the first time, and they're reacting in real time, kind of like asking us questions about drums or about keyboards and guitar parts. And you know, it's rewarding. It's just like I would say for every band, like if you have that ability in Bandcamp, it was fun. It was definitely
it was fun.
It was fun.
You get a couple hundred people you're just like chatting with this or watching them chat with them amongst themselves. It's about the music. It's really great. It's really great.
Sound like fun, man. Definitely.
Yeah. And then it is also cool because it's in Bandcamp. So if someone buys like a record or they order the pre-order, it shows up and that they purchased it, and people are like, you know, like, so it is pretty cool, like as a band. And you know, people are buying t-shirts and it shows up in there, like, because they went and clicked on the link and went and purchased and stuff. And you know, they're asking about tour and where you come in and please get to the EU. And you know, like it's kind of what you would expect, but it's also like these people really care about what you're doing, and it's really rewarding. So put it in your next press promo operations. It's you know, people who really care about your release and are really excited. So I was very pleased.
That's cool, man. Yeah, I mean, that sounds like really interesting.
Definitely a good investment. Yeah.
So now the pre-order, is that accessible through your Bandcamp page, or do you have to go to Profound Lore to do it, or what's the deal?
Both. You can on Bandcamp.
Yep. All right.
Yeah, they have it all up there for sure. Yeah. Okay. They got their stuff in order.
And you should mention the because it's not up. I haven't seen it anywhere unless I'm looking at the wrong place. But the audio version, the audio book on tape version of. So, you should mention that.
Yeah. So we did like the book. We made like a book on tape of the book using like AI and real voices and AI voices combined together to make like an audio book of the 9 stories from the book that comes with the record. So yeah.
Well, the reason I'm talking about pre-order is because this episode is going to, my Patreon subscribers, is going to come out a week in it. So people listen to this on Patreon. There's still like about a week until the record comes out. So they might get on the pre-order now. So and for me too, I got to pre-order it too. So I want to get the book, man. I'm so fascinated by this book. You know?
It came out, and the designer at Joe's at Profound Lore did such a great job. I was so afraid because book design, it's like so much text, and you know, it's like 30 something pages, but he just, you know, killed it with that design. Yeah,
it looks great. It looks really, really great. So
yeah.
Since we're talking about books, I just want to digress for a second here. I saw maybe on Instagram today, Terence, that you have an audiobook version of Our Dead Age and this Anathemata editions. Is that your own? That's your own?
That's my imprint. I do like Locrian lathes or Holy Circle releases and stuff like that through there. Yeah.
So what is all this stuff though? It's an audio book? I know that
We-
you had some books out, so I just wanted to fill
So
in.
this is the book that comes with the record. And that's what we were talking about. That's like the AI voices and real voices AI with some field recordings on the cassette. I don't really like doing book readings, and I was kind of like, how can I avoid having to do a reading? And then I was like, well, what if I like pre-record it? I was like, well, that's lame. And I was like, well, what if I did it with AI and like change the voices and made it more interesting and kind of like put real voices through like vocoders and made it just more like a sound thing than like here's the book from start to finish, kind of situation. So that was kind of the idea, and I thought I could make it weird, and it came out pretty freaking weird in the end, and I like it. I'm pleased with it.
Well, if you ever do it again, I'll volunteer my voice for reading.
You have a good voice, Mike. You have a good voice for radio.
Yeah,
it would work
good idea.
well.
Yeah, I've been playing around with that format a little bit on my own too.
Yeah. There's like standards that I didn't know. So like I submitted it to go to the cassette plant, and they're like, well, this is technically a book on tape, and there's some peaks here. And I was like, they're like, you need to master it in a different way than music. And I was like, oh, okay. So I got to learn how to do that. But it was like, I didn't know that's what you're supposed to do for like an audio book or whatever. It's like a different mastering format and decibel heights and all this stuff. And so I learned the hard way, I guess, but I learned. But
this entire idea for the next Tunes record, actually.
Oh yeah.
No, it's great. I'm not what I was just kidding, but like I'm fascinated by like this whole thing, man. I'm really excited about that. So yeah.
And there'll be more. There's like a visual so it's like a series of releases we're gonna do that kind of like expand the world of the album. And one will be like a book of images that Andre and Steven actually made over the last 5 years or so. That I've kind of culled together into a zine. And then there'll be kind of like, it's like a record that's like a field recording that kind of corresponds to where you are in the record, like a very abstract Tribes of Neurat that would accompany Through Silver and Blood, you know what I'm saying? Nice. but a field recordings. So
wow.
So everyone, all of us have kind of contributed, and we edited them to correspond kind of like loosely to where like a song would end. It would be like these fade-ins between things. So if you play them, they would kind of correspond, or just kind of listen to it on its own, because it actually sounds pretty cool on its own. But it's all these different field recordings that the three of us have collected over a while and edited together. But again, the idea was to kind of make the world of the album like bigger and expand it,
Now this is there. All right. There's only one version of the record, right? Like is there like a deluxe that has all this stuff?
No.
Okay. So when you order the record, this is what you get.
You get the record, it comes with the book, and that's what you get. Yep.
All right, cool. I just want to make sure that I got it all figured out here when I order this thing.
Are you ordering it right now, Mike?
I just I actually went to the site here and I clicked the pre-order link, and I got this website status suspicious.
Oh, that's not good.
Yeah,
that is not good.
We'll see what happens.
That's not good.
Like steal all my personal information.
Don't get hacked, man.
All right, it looks to be okay now.
Okay, good.
Nothing crazy happened here.
Yeah,
I trust you. I trust you and Chris and all you guys. So
okay.
Yeah, I feel like Chris has been pretty successful at this for a while, so I imagine he has his website on point, but never know.
It might be just some weird security thing here. Being that it's from Canada or something like that. Those nefarious Canadians.
Those Canadians, man, you gotta watch them.
Yeah. No, this is great, man. I'm really looking forward to this. And also, you said there's a date. You got dates in New York and Philly too.
It'll be like Northeast. We're just kind of waiting on some confirmations. So we'll be posting those hopefully within the next week. We're so close to kind of like solidifying it, and there's a bunch of promoters who are ready to go, and I think a few that we're just kind of waiting on that final last confirmation, but we're within a week or two. We're there. We're ready to go. So yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. I'll keep my eyes out for that. I mean,
sure. Thanks, Mike.
Oh no, dude! It's been like at least 8 years since I've seen you guys play.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's gonna be awesome,
Yeah.
And it's funny, like I live in Jersey City, so you would think it'd be easier for me to go to see shows in Brooklyn, right?
Yeah.
You figure it's only like 8 miles from here. That's not the case, though.
Yeah. Is it like
I prefer to drive to Philadelphia?
Oh, really?
Oh yeah.
Oh.
All in all, it takes about the same amount of time, man. It takes me still an
Wow.
hour to get out to Brooklyn if I drive, and like taking the train would be a nightmare too. It would be about an hour on the train too.
And I guess you have some kind of cutoff at some point of getting back home. Like I have to leave at midnight or whatever,
No, they don't have that necessarily. But
okay.
like, it's like, at some point along this journey, I have to get in a car. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
To go to the PATH train or something like that.
How far are you? How far is Philly from you?
About an hour or so, a little over an hour 15.
Okay.
So really, it's like if I were just whenever I go to a show in New York, and like next weekend, me and my girlfriend are going to like 3 shows like next week.
Yeah.
One of them's in Philly, and one of them's in Manhattan, and one's out in Brooklyn. And I'm going to clock the Brooklyn show and the Philly show and the travel times and make sure they're probably about the same.
Wow.
Yeah.
I never would have thought that at all. Yeah. Man, makes me appreciate when New Jersey people have come to shows in New York. That's like for sure. Like you just think, oh, it's right next door.
Yeah. But I mean, either way, I'll be, I'm not going to, I didn't want to drive across Manhattan to see you guys. No.
We'll let Mike, you'll be one of the first we tell for sure. Absolutely, man. Yeah. For both. We'll let you know. I didn't know for Philly too. Yeah. We'll let you know for sure.
Yeah.
Well, gentlemen, thank you for informing me on all this stuff and letting us know about the pre-order. I'm excited. Once I get off this call, I'm going to pre-order the album.
Awesome. Thank you.
Looking forward to seeing
Thank
it.
you.
And I knew that obviously I knew the record was coming out because I've been listening to the tracks that have been released, but I didn't realize it was such like a ambitious like package that's coming out.
We're trying. We I don't know. We're trying to do something bigger than we've done in the past. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks guys. And
thank
enjoy
you.
the rest of your evening. All right.
Thank you. Have a good night, Mike.
Okay.
Good night, guys.
See you,
Take
man.
care.
See you soon.
Good night. See ya.